extraordinarily impactful in the worlds of transportation, in the worlds of AI, and the worlds of blockchain, et cetera. Many times they have applications to energy, many times they have applications to multiple industries. And so we're investing across all these different industries. The way, I'll put up some slides, the way we think of it is that every single industry that historically was not a technology business is a technology business today. And frankly, many of the existing legacy companies, know it or not, are under attack. And 10 years ago, when we looked at, and I've been an investor for almost 12 years now, when we started investing, we mostly invested in companies whose aspirations were to find large enterprises to be their customers and partners. And I think what's changed dramatically is that the aspirations and the capital availability to entrepreneurs today is such that that's not their aspiration. Their aspiration is just to become the new big companies. We use Uber as an example. I've had Uber started 5 or 10 years ago. Prior to when they actually started, their aspiration would have been to be a software company for the taxi cab industry. That's what that company would have looked like had they started 5 years earlier. But because they started when they did, when capital was available when it was, their aspiration is we just want to be the new transportation ecosystem. That I'm a part of, we have an office in Berlin, Germany, and here in San Francisco, Sen8 Global Capital. The way we actually started was a number of European entities, many of whom are German, had the same challenge that we've all been talking about, which is how do we actually invest in, get access to disruptive companies that many of whom are not starting in Europe, and how do we find ways to partner with and work with them. So most of our capital is coming from European corporations and entities, and most of our investing activity is happening here. And we fulfill that gap of being able to help those companies as they move and expand in Europe, and helping the investors and large companies in Europe gain access to North American companies. This is just quickly me, and the only reason I mention it is that I spent the first half of my life as an entrepreneur, the middle half of my life as an investment banker, and then I've been largely been an investor since. I started, a number of years ago at a firm called CMEA Capital. CMEA spun out of the largest venture capital firm in the world called NEA, New Enterprise Associates. And our focus there was mostly energy. So the CMEA stood for Chemical Material Enterprise Associates. So we, for a number of years, we spent a lot of time investing in all aspects of it. Everything from modular nuclear company called NuScale, to solar, where we lost lots of money, and companies like Solyndra, et cetera, and have lots of lessons learned on how to take $1 and turn it into 1 cent, if that's interesting to you. I'm happy to tell you. As well as battery technologies. So we invested in storage, a company called A123 Systems. They haven't seen their big multi-billion-dollar company outcomes yet. Do I, as an investor, sit back and say they probably will be? Yeah, they probably will be. I just don't know who they are going to be yet today. But here's kind of a handful of companies that, in the broad ecosystem of things, are all in this, have achieved the unicorn status of billion-dollar companies in some part of the broader energy ecosystem.
In the power sector.
Yeah.
Do you see any new?
So I'll kind of look at this, which is to help answer that, which is kind of where you sort of see value shifting, which is where is there greater value over time, where margins increase versus where margins is declining. And so, and typically when you look at this, that's probably where the companies will, where you'd see the disruption happening, which is probably the right hand side of this. Distributed generation, services, retail, more so than generation, wholesale, transmission. It's more likely as you see value coming into advanced metering. We talked a little bit about PC, microgrids. There's lots of these different things that have the ability to be more disruptive. You kind of talk about Apple, where I think their disruption would be with just big mega enterprises like that being completely self-powered and off the grid. So it's probably more of that than the generation, which is just really core industrial.
The entire California market.
And you're talking about businesses thriving in sort of various
Yeah.
subsets of regulation. And I see some clear parallels between these two sort of journeys in these sectors. Where is the energy sector going? Are we now at the side of the pendulum where we're going to swing back to less regulation, which is then good for typically American companies? Or
Yeah.
would we now enter into a phase where you think there's more regulation, which would then favor other sorts of companies? What's your take on that globally?
You know, so first I will say that I don't have, there's probably a lot of people who are incredibly smarter at this than I am. My general view is we're probably in a world of moving towards less regulation globally, my view, until something happens to shock it the other way. I don't know what that's going to be, but until something like that happens, you know, I would say, at least in the US, the biggest regulatory shock has been privacy, US elections, you know, etc. And how, and that, like, it hasn't really, you know, GDPR hasn't happened here yet. It probably should, but if there is a shock to the system, that should be it, right? You know, actual, you know, that's